Good morning, this is Chris Soule. I'd like to read why I sit in the front row at church. On a sunny Sunday morning around 9:50 a.m., choir practice is over, as are the usual greetings to others in our high-ceilinged octagonal sanctuary. It's almost an hour of singing and re-singing songs for this morning's service. I have a few minutes to sit and think before the resident bowl draws us all to the start of the formal service. I'm sitting, as usual, in the front row of the church. I am one seat from the center aisle with full view of the dais and the yet-to-be-lit metal chalice. From here, all that anybody but the minister can see of me is the back of my graying head. It occurred to me to question why I sit where I do during the Sunday morning service, front and center, as if I owned the place, or maybe prepared to stand and start some sort of narration, an announcement to the gathered churchgoers behind me. So why sit here? Not why I'm in church at all, but what does this specific seat say? Why is here the ideal place for the next 75 minutes? Do I seek attention? Maybe. I'm some level of extrovert and have no qualms about public speaking, especially in a church that I have attended for over 55 years. After performing here in plays, pageants, choirs, reading skits, and even Gilbert and Sullivan operettas, yes, dressed in tights, a feathered hat, my face covered with stage makeup, I have only a minimum fear of failure and embarrassment. I have confidence that if I were to take the stage, I would not be booed out the door to an early coffee hour. Today, as most Sundays, I've positioned myself in the front row, yet have no obligation during the service other than to sing a song or two. Yet, here I sit. A bit of UU choir history. It has been many years since the choir actually sat in and sang from the originally named choir loft at the rear of the sanctuary. Back in those days, the choir loft was a haven for my younger self and others of all ages, out of sight of the congregation below. Up in that lofty recess, we would sit not so quietly in the narrow spaces on each side of the organ console, sharing soundless winks, nods, and glares that would never have been accepted in the pews below. Some of the choir would read, or sleep, or silently rehearse the music to be sung that day. One unnamed tenor would spend a great deal of time winding his watch and loudly counting his pocket change. Back then, the choir was invisible, not seen, and only heard at the appropriate time, per the dictates of the Sunday morning bulletin. A few years ago, that second-story refuge was expanded, doubling the seating capacity. It is now the realm of families with young children who find the stairs exciting to climb and offer an interesting perspective on the crowded floor below. For a few years, the movable chairs near the outer walls down on the sanctuary floor became choir land. We would separate by voice parts, tenors and bass on one side, altos and sopranos assigned to the opposite side. I guess the thinking was that during the service, the center pews were intended for people more likely to duck out at any moment, and the choir was not leaving until the service was completely finished. I suspect some of the placement had to do with an accompanist or choir director that preferred using the ground floor piano rather than the organ permanently positioned on the second floor. The choir has come from obscurity in the back of the church and the assigned movable chairs to the current high visibility location, front and center of the sanctuary. Could I change my seating habit? Yes, I could, but why? From the front pews, I can quickly get into our ever-changing helter-skelter choir formation to sing, or offer an arm of assistance to any fellow singers having trouble negotiating the steps. Often the first to rise and the last to sit, I can for a moment look out in the faces of friends and members seated in the pews. This seating location actually comes from old habits. My parents, my wife, and I have been choir members for decades. Now that my father has passed away, I continue the habit of seating next to his now vacant seat directly on the aisle at the front row of seats. After 50 years of participating, he was the senior member of the tenor section. He loved to sing. He was always at practice and was perennially at services on Sundays. I still sit next to the seat, now vacant. He took his own. Another of my reasons for this front and center seat is the last closing song of the usual Sunday service. After the readings, the singing, the sermonizing, and the passing of the plate, we get one final chance to sing all together. We stand as a like-minded community, holding hands, and sing about our commitment to one another and the world at large. From you I receive, to you I give. It is at this point that being in the front row offers me an advantage. When we stand for this last affirmation of faith, the front row turns to face the back of the sanctuary and is joined by the ministers and service leaders. It is at this time I can look at the faces in the pews and up in the family-friendly balcony, hear their song, and look into their eyes. Some may smile, or not. Some may even look away when I make eye contact. But know it or not, I always offer a glimmer of the human within. Sometimes their song is bold, with familiar pitch and timbre. Sometimes it is tentative or non-existent, with no sound at all. Sometimes they don't feel they can sing, so they don't try. For others, they may be new to our church family and do not know the tune. We welcome all to sing, listen, or just be present. Merely being is the most important. Just as the eyes are the window to the soul, I can look out from my front and center position to make a human contact as I sing. Together we share, and for this we live. Blessed be.